sloppy, confusing, terrifying. I think I hated it. It means the Leafs are in playoff form, baby. Absolutely the Buds. Go Leafs, go. Let's go. Give me what I want. Kick down the door. Drew, you are not doing this. Not nice. There's a giant head. You hear yourself. I made like 2,000 of these. I'd like to have fun.
With you wherever you are, welcome to LFR.
Victory, Puppy Ziggy! You know what? There is an emergency. And it's Florida's! It's also the Leafs. Can they please have a goalie? This team is... I don't know about ruining my life so much, but this team sure is something. Leafs win! 2-1 in overtime over the Florida Panthers, who kinda needed a win. As a Leaf fan, I gotta say, I am getting a kick out of the wild card picture in the East. It's difficult to know who to cheer for. I kind of just want the two wild card teams to be the two teams most likely to beat up Boston and Carolina a bit, which I'm probably going to say is the Islanders and Panthers. But like the Penguins are almost for sure going to get one of those spots, but they also might not. Buffalo's in the picture, but they need a miracle to happen. Like for example, they need something like, I don't know, for the Islanders to get demolished by the Washington Capitals, or for the Florida Panthers to drop a game at home where their opponent was shorthanded by like a lot, actually. I'm not saying I hope the Florida Panthers miss the playoffs because I hate all of the four teams I just mentioned equally, but how do you lose this game if you're the Panthers? I guess that's why you never know which way it's gonna go. And if you think you know which way it's gonna go, head on over to Sports Interaction. When the puck drops, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame, live betting on all major sports. Baseball is well underway, and prop bets. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN and download the Sports Interaction app using the QR code on the screen, but only if you're 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Listen, I'm going to be honest, $2 Steve would not have bet on the Leafs in this one. The game is almost secondary to the lead up. So let's talk about what happened as best as I can understand it. So remember a few days ago, I was talking about, there might be some complications with regard to the Leafs signing Matthew Knies, but they're going to sign Matthew Knies. And basically, for the cap restraints leading up to the Leafs signing Matthew Knies, the Leafs had to send someone down. That's all they had to do. They had to send someone down. They had a choice of Wayne Simmonds or Joseph Woll. They chose Joseph Woll. And they had Wayne Simmonds play in the game previous to this one. It was probably going to be his last home game as a Leaf unless he ends up playing in the playoffs. And that's not a guarantee. So then the Leafs signed Matthew Knies, but they had Jet Alexander as the backup. We can't have Jet Alexander as the backup. That guy's a U of T student. And so the Leafs decided, all right, we're going to call up Joseph Woll on an emergency recall. Now, that is something you can do if you don't have enough players to play in a game. Like, hey, this guy got hurt and we're shorthanded and let us call this person up. That's how I understand it. And by the way, what I've learned over the past 24 hours is I don't understand the cap nearly as well as I thought I did. It's so impossibly hard for the average fan to understand. Like, unless you really dedicate time to understanding this, no casual fan has a shot. I go to work, come home, watch the game, want to understand what's happening. Impossible. You can't do that. Anyway, long story short, the Leafs thought they would be able to call up Joseph Woll on an emergency basis, no cap hit. The problem is an emergency recall is at the NHL's discretion, and the NHL said no. To which the Leafs responded, but we only have one goalie, and the NHL, not gonna lie, kind of rightly said, well, whose fault is that? Because remember, the Leafs had the option of sending down Wayne Simmonds, paper transaction. He hasn't played for the Marlies this year, but they had the option of sending down Wayne Simmonds or Joseph Woll, who's a goalie. They chose the goalie. So a few days later, the Leafs have already signed Matthew Knies, and they approach the league and they say, please let us call up a goalie. To which the NHL responded, you had a goalie, you sent him down. So the NHL basically said, you figure it out. So the Leafs were forced to sign another ATO, an amateur tryout. So it was Ilya Samsonov starting, and a dude, I already forget his name, but he played for the Owen Sound Attack of the OHL this year. From Luke Fox, the ATO goalie they signed is Nick Chenard. 21 years old. He went 14, 16, and 3 with an .873 save percentage for the Owen Sound attack this season. And none of those numbers matter because Nick Chenard is not Joseph Woll! Now, Rachel Dory, who has worked for the New Jersey Devils and the Vancouver Canucks, she has a TikTok account called Puck Bucks, and she explained the situation. Now, the way she understands it and explains it in that TikTok video is the Leafs were not in an emergency situation, according to the NHL, heading into this game against the Florida Panthers. Next game, tomorrow, against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Leafs will be in an emergency situation and should be able to call up Joseph Woll, and he should be able to play tomorrow's game. Hopefully that's what ends up happening, because I couldn't help but notice that the entire game broadcast was like, who knows what's happening tomorrow? And we still don't officially know. It feels like we should officially know. Although the Leafs could make a trade. Now, people forget this. The trade deadline isn't really the trade deadline. You can still make a trade with anybody. It's just that player would not be eligible to play in the playoffs. So let's say the Leafs made a trade and they got Jonathan Quick, for example. Vegas is like, here you go. And they get Jonathan Quick. The Leafs could get Jonathan Quick. They could play him these next 2 games. They could not play him in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And this just feels like a big waste of words because we'll find out soon. Here's what got me ticked off, and we'll talk about this more in depth on the podcast. Is this cap shenanigans? Absolutely! Are the Leafs in the wrong? Absolutely! There's precedence that this could happen. This happened to the Rangers earlier this season. The Leafs are in the wrong, and this is cap shenanigans. What cheeses me off, why is this the line? Why is this the line? So I had a tweet about, you can acquire players who are on LTIR and they're never going to play a hockey game again. You can acquire a player who's never going to play a hockey game again and use that player to your benefit. Now, I had it wrong in terms of the getting the player gives you cap relief. Like, for example, Tampa Bay getting Brent Seabrook. Brent Seabrook was not the cap relief. It was actually trading Tyler Johnson from their team to the Chicago Blackhawks, while Brent Seabrook is $0 against the cap. Here's the problem. To me, that's 6 and half a dozen. There's a difference between the two, but there isn't a difference between the two. The Lightning, who were cap-strapped, were able to trade a guy who made too much money to the Chicago Blackhawks, who don't care about that, for Brent Seabrook, who makes a lot of money but isn't going to play again. Even though the Lightning acquired a player with a larger cap hit, his cap hit is actually 0 because he's never going to play again, whereas Tyler Johnson is. So I guess what I'm saying is not what the Leafs did should be allowed. It's, how is that allowed? And I'm not using the Lightning as an example to pick on the Lightning because the Leafs are playing them in a playoff series next week. I'm using the Lightning as an example because what the heck is that? It's all silly, it's all goofy, it's dumb. Now, as for this game, Matthew Knies was not going to play. He got into the lineup because Sam Lafferty got hurt. Luke Schenn, as I understand it, was not going to play. Eric Gustafsson got hurt in warm-up. Luke Schenn had to throw all his clothes on very fast. And Ilya Samsonov was being backed up by a goaltender who played for the Owen Sound attack. Florida Panthers, on the other hand, were playing for their playoff lives. Now, it says here, the Florida Panthers outshot the Toronto Maple Leafs 46-25. And that sounds really bad, and it is really bad. And as someone who watched that game in its entirety, really? I don't know if Samsonov just played really calm in there, but it did not feel like the Panthers mustered 46 shots. By the way, Samsonov, who winced last game, 45 saves, including several where he really... Dude, he has one of the most ridiculous groins in the league. And they kept showing close-ups of Samsonov, and it gave me heart palpitations every time. But he looked great. This dude was getting banged into and crashed into. TJ Brody, I think it was, flew into his leg and pinned it against the goalpost, and that looked like it could have really hurt. It didn't. The only time Samsonov looked really uncomfortable, he took a shot up high, which happens to goalies. I didn't like that it happened to this particular goalie at this particular time on account of he has to be in net for game 1! But let this performance show He's good. And the nervous energy in Florida was hilarious. First of all, it's a Leafs game, so Panthers fans are like almost outnumbered. Second of all, the Panthers outshoot the Leafs 15-8 in the first period and have nothing to show for it. And who gets the game's first goal? Auston Matthews, who's a Leaf! His 40th of the season. His terrible, no good, awful season. Tips in the Mitch Marner shot, who picks up his 99th point of the season, which everyone was focusing on, and that caused them to lose sight on the fact that he has 69 assists. That's great. Matthews still heating up, and the Panthers, oh boy, are down. Once again, outshooting the Leafs 16-7 in the second, which is worse, and still nothing to show for it. Less than nothing. They are losing. It is not until about halfway through the third, when the Panthers really start pouring it on, Brandon Montour finally solves Samsonov with the only shot out of 46 that beats him, and it's like a Stanley Cup final goal. Stanley Cup final celebration, anyway. And just like that, the game goes to overtime. By the way, you know how I know the Leafs didn't care about this game? They started Matthews and Marner, which, if you're not a Leaf fan, that's going to sound really counterintuitive, but they're supposed to start David Kampf. It's a weird team. I never said they were normal, but it's worked. Like, they were one of the worst overtime teams in the league, and then they did that, and it worked? Dumb, silly nonsense. It's the Leafs. During that overtime, Ilya Samsonov made a save that made him look like a human wishbone. Luckily, he did not crack. Puck goes the other way, and it's John Tavares! Why not? Just looking at NHL.com, they did not give Samsonov an assist on this, and I think that's trash. Deeks the pants off of Alex Lyon, who got Alex Lyoned in this game compared to what happened last time, Alex. And I'm not going to do the full John Tavares IKEA thing, because I think we need to look at Platinum Seat Matt from the SDPN Discord, who quoted John Tavares, "Hey everyone, John Tavares here, captain of your Toronto Maple Leafs. Tonight we are going to talk about the importance of getting your kids and your team to bed on time. And that includes the kids on your team. Matthew Knies is on our team. We made him do this thing where we told him he needs to lead us out onto the ice, and he got out there and he was skating, and then we didn't follow him." So embarrassing. The Panthers do get a point, but they do get a little bit more restless. Questions. Jeff Merrick with a darn good point. They boo him relentlessly at UBS Arena, and yet there's John Tavares still helping the New York Islanders despite it. Oh, now I wish he didn't score it. This isn't a question, this is just a picture from the Leafs Instagram. It's Tavares celebrating. Check out Buddy with the beard. Love it. And the people behind him. Love it. Love that. Love that for you. From Liam. So who's the number one center tomorrow? Holmberg or Steves? Kyle Clifford? Who cares? You know what? Kyle Clifford. That's actually a good idea. Kyle Clifford. Is Samsonov him or is he that guy? I think he's Ilya Samsonov. That's terrible. You knew this one was coming, so you better put me in the video. Okay, fine. Thoughts on Knies' debut? First of all, producer Drew has been waiting for ages for Matthew Knies to make his Leafs debut so he can do the title. Did you see the title? Knies to meet you. That's hilarious! But also, Knies' debut looked like a kid who played a heartbreaking final college game 2 days ago and also woke up this morning not knowing he was going to make his NHL debut. That's kind of how he looked. He was a little nervous at times and made a few mistakes, especially early on. But I tell you what, as nervous debuts go, not bad. Not bad, actually. You can tell, like, they were throwing the body. The Panthers were throwing the body big time on Knies, and he maybe struggled to adjust to the speed a little bit, but he was fighting. He had a few really good stick lifts on the defensive side, board battles. He was really dogged on the puck, and he even helped generate a scoring chance for Kerfoot, if I'm not mistaken. You can tell where the potential is. I don't expect him to win the Hart just yet. Last but not least, little shout out to Auston Matthews. He recorded his 5th career 40-goal season, surpassing Daryl Sittler, who had 4 for the most in Leafs history, while also taking over the franchise record for most consecutive campaigns with as many goals in the process. Between injuries and, most importantly, COVID, it's amazing that Matthews should actually have way more goals than he does. Meanwhile, his goal scoring pace at like 25 years old is basically guaranteed Hockey Hall of Famer. That's ridiculous. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends to check their phone because they might have gotten an invitation to be the backup goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow.